They were supposed to be a normal suburban family, a quiet home on a tree-lined street in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. But what happened inside that house on July 22, 2015, would leave an entire nation shaken. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a tragic accident. This was a massacre. And the ones responsible? Not strangers, not outsiders, but two brothers who grew up under the same roof as the victims. Welcome back to The Dark Stories. I'm your narrator, and today we're diving into one of the most horrifying and baffling cases in modern American crime, the Bever family murders. Before we begin, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button, and turning on notifications. These small actions help us continue to bring you the most haunting and compelling true crime cases from around the world. Now, let's go back to that summer night in Oklahoma. It was just before midnight on July 22, 2015, when a chilling 911 call came through to the Broken Arrow Police Department. A young girl was whispering into the phone, barely audible. Crystal Bever. "My brother's attacking our family. He has a knife. Please help." It was 12-year-old Crystal Bever. She was bleeding, stabbed, barely conscious. But she had managed to escape the nightmare unfolding inside her home long enough to call for help. When officers arrived at the Bever residence, what they found was something straight out of a horror film. Blood trails leading through the house, silence, and then movement. One of the younger children, 2-year-old Autumn, was found alive and unharmed in an upstairs room. But everyone else, the scene was a nightmare. The Bever family was by all appearances ordinary. David and April Bever were the parents of 7 children. They homeschooled their kids and kept mostly to themselves. Neighbors described them as quiet and reclusive, but nothing alarming. No one suspected that anything dark was festering behind those walls. The children were Robert Bever 18, Michael Bever 16, Daniel 12, Christopher 7, Victoria 5, Crystal 12, and Autumn 2. By the end of that night, only Crystal and Autumn would survive. According to Crystal's harrowing account and later police interviews, the night of the murders began like any other, until it didn't. Robert and Michael lured their younger siblings one by one into a bedroom under the pretense of talking or playing. But behind that door they were armed with knives, and something much darker, a cold, calculated plan to take the lives of their entire family. It wasn't impulsive. This wasn't an emotional breakdown or a spur-of-the-moment rage. It was premeditated. Robert and Michael had been planning the murders for months. They wanted to be infamous. Inspired by high-profile mass attacks they had read about online, their goal was to become legends in the world of violence. What they envisioned was not just the massacre of their family. That was just the beginning. They planned to steal a vehicle, acquire firearms, and go on a nationwide killing spree. They even recorded their plans on a computer and kept detailed journals, evidence that would later play a crucial role in the investigation. Officers found the bodies of 5 family members. All had been stabbed dozens of times. April Bever had 48 stab wounds. David Bever had 28. Daniel fought hard. He managed to call out for help before being silenced. Christopher and Victoria, just 7 and 5 years old, were defenseless. Crystal, despite her injuries, would survive and later testify in court. Her courage helped ensure justice was served. Robert and Michael were found shortly after the attack, hiding in the woods near their home, blood-stained, armed, and showing no signs of remorse. When questioned, their confessions were disturbingly calm. They admitted to everything. No tears, no guilt. Because Robert was 18 at the time of the murders, he was charged as an adult. Michael, only 16, was also charged as an adult under Oklahoma law. In court, the disturbing details of their plot were laid bare. The journals, the recordings, the complete lack of empathy. In 2016, Robert Bever pleaded guilty to all 5 murders to avoid the death penalty. He received 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Michael's case went to trial. His defense tried to argue that he had been manipulated by his older brother, that he was too young, too impressionable. But the jury didn't buy it. In 2018, Michael Bever was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 38 years. After the murders, the Bever home became a macabre symbol of tragedy. It stood empty for a time before being demolished. The land where the house once stood has since been transformed into a memorial park, a place of peace, honoring the 5 lives that were lost. Today, Crystal and Autumn live private lives, away from the spotlight. Crystal, now a young adult, has shown tremendous strength, not just in surviving that night, but in continuing to live beyond it. The Bever family murders remain one of the most disturbing crimes in American history, not just because of the brutality, but because of who committed it. Brothers, sons, family. It forces us to ask chilling questions. What causes such evil to take root in the minds of the young? Could anything have prevented it? And how do the survivors ever begin to heal? Thank you for joining us on this journey into one of the darkest stories of our time. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to The Dark Stories, giving us a like and sharing this episode. Your support helps us bring light to the shadows, one story at a time. Let's hear a quick timeline of the horrifying events in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Before July 22, 2015, Robert and Michael Bever begin planning a large-scale killing spree, starting with their own family. Months leading up to July 22, 2015, Robert takes a job at a religious call center to fund weapons and tactical gear. The brothers collect knives, order body armor, and plan to acquire guns and ammunition. Their sister Crystal tells their parents about the suspicious activity, but nothing is done. Late evening, July 22, 2015, everyone in the Bever home is asleep except for April, Crystal, and the brothers. Around 11:30 p.m. on July 22, 2015, April tells Crystal to ask the boys to clean up. Crystal walks in to find them armed and suiting up. Moments later, the brutal attack begins. Crystal is slashed and stabbed but manages to flee before being dragged back inside. At 11:32 p.m., Daniel Bever, just 12 years old, calls 911. His terrified voice and screams are heard in the background. Minutes later, police arrive and hear faint cries for help. Inside, the scene is unimaginable. During the chaos, April is stabbed 48 times. Christopher and Victoria hide in a bathroom but are lured out and murdered. Daniel locks himself in an office, but Michael tricks him into opening the door. He is then killed by Robert. David, the father, is also fatally stabbed when he emerges. After the attack, Robert and Michael flee to a wooded area nearby. At 12:18 a.m. on July 23, 2015, the brothers are found and arrested, covered in blood and dirt. July 25, 2015, Michael, 16 years old, is charged as an adult. July 31, 2015, both brothers are charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. August 3, 2015, they plead not guilty. September 7, 2016. Robert changes course. He pleads guilty and is sentenced to 6 life sentences without parole. March 18, 2017. The Bever home is destroyed in a fire. April 16, 2018. Michael Bever's trial begins. May 9, 2018. The jury finds him guilty on all charges. August 9, 2018. Michael is sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences plus 28 years. March 28, 2019, the site of the Bever home is transformed into Reflection Park, a memorial to the victims. Robert attempts to assault 2 prison officers with a sharpened weapon. November 17, 2020, Robert receives 3 additional life terms for the prison attack, bringing his total to 9. Present day. Michael continues to appeal his sentence, arguing it is essentially life without parole. The Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals denies his challenge, affirming his conviction. Now, let's dive into a deep discussion.
Okay, let's unpack this. Children who kill their parents are only 1% of the homicides that are committed in the United States, so it's an unusual circumstance. That statistic, it really hits hard, doesn't it?
It really does. It comes from a family counselor, and it just throws into stark relief the case we're diving into today.
Yeah, the Bever family murders. Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, July 22, 2015. It's one of those cases that just, it sticks with you. Hard to comprehend.
Absolutely. It was incredibly shocking at the time, and looking at the details again, it's still deeply unsettling. We're working from news reports you shared and also that Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals opinion, which is quite detailed.
Right. And our goal here isn't just to list facts. We want to, really try and understand the anatomy of this whole tragedy, what happened that night, the motivations, if you can even call them that, and the legal side, too.
Exactly. A comprehensive look. And you mentioned the sources, news reports, the court documents. We should probably mention sometimes the initial reports had slightly different details than what came out later in court.
That happens, yeah.
It does. So we'll navigate that, but mostly lean on the court's findings for the established facts.
Okay. So where do we even start with something this dark?
Well, I think the logical place, though it's grim, is the crime scene itself. The what, where, and who. So July 22, 2015, they're home in Broken Arrow.
And it kicked off with that 911 call made by 12-year-old Daniel Bever. Just incredible bravery in that moment.
Absolutely terrifying moment.
Yeah. The dispatcher's notes, they're haunting. Some commotion and multiple PPL, a lot of screaming, someone trying to be quiet and crying. You can just feel the chaos.
And Daniel's last words on that call.
Michael, please don't murder me. Then the line went dead. It just sends a chill down your spine.
It really does. That call is such a critical, heartbreaking piece of this. It tells you so much about the terror inside that house.
And the victims. It's just a devastating list. The mother, April Bever, 48 stab wounds. She was considered the primary target.
That's what the investigation suggested, yes.
Yeah.
The sheer number of wounds.
Yeah.
48. It's horrific.
And the father, David Bever, 28 stab wounds.
Then the children. Daniel, who made the call, 12 years old, 21 stab wounds.
Christopher, only 7, also 21 stab wounds.
And Victoria, just 5 years old, 23 stab wounds.
It's almost impossible to say those numbers. And then there's Crystal, the 13-year-old sister.
Her survival is, frankly, miraculous. A slit throat, multiple stab wounds.
Yeah.
But she lived, and she identified her brothers.
Her testimony must have been crucial. Just astounding resilience.
Truly. And we also have the youngest, Autumn, only 23 months old.
Found unharmed upstairs. But the plan for her,
Yeah, the reports indicate the plan was to decapitate her with an axe. It's monstrous. Daniel's 911 call, it seems, disrupted their timeline.
Thank God for that call. So the total number of stab wounds, initial reports said over 100.
Yes, and one source later specified 141 across all the victims who were stabbed. Just an unbelievable level of violence.
And it wasn't. They weren't passive victims. The reports mentioned defense wounds.
That's right. Several victims had wounds indicating they fought back, they struggled for their lives.
Yeah. You also see the mention of defibrillator pads found on April and Christopher.
Yeah, it speaks to the scene first responders found. Desperate attempts to save them. Sadly unsuccessful. Just utter devastation.
So the perpetrators, their own sons, Robert Davis Bever, 18 at the time, and Michael John Bever, just 16.
It's the core shocking element, isn't it? The violence coming from within the family.
And the family background, sources mentioned they were very isolated, homeschooled.
Yes. Neighbors reported the family was quite reclusive. The kids didn't really play outside, weren't seen much. Some neighbors apparently didn't even know all their names.
That kind of isolation, it can really warp things, can't it?
It certainly can. Lack of outside interactions, social norms. It can create an environment where extreme ideas might develop without challenge.
And the motives, this is where it gets, I think, even more disturbing, if that's possible. It wasn't just anger, was it?
No, not according to the investigation and confessions. It seems to have been driven by this chilling desire for fame. Infamy, really.
Like they wanted to be more famous than other mass killers. Columbine, Aurora.
Exactly. They reportedly aimed for a huge body count, maybe 50. Some sources even mentioned 500. They saw this as just the start.
Just the start. What else were they planning?
The cross-country killing spree after murdering the family. It was all part of this grand, horrific fantasy.
Good Lord. And the plan for the bodies.
Gruesome. Dismemberment, hiding them in the attic.
And they planned to film it. Or parts of it.
2 videos, apparently. One for the police, showing the bodies. Another without the bodies, to post online. It's just calculated and cold.
What about the specific reasons? Michael was excitement-seeking. Robert hated society.
Those were the motivations mentioned, yes. Michael seeking thrills, Robert driven by a sort of generalized hatred. It points to Very different, but equally disturbing mindsets.
And the preparation, this wasn't spontaneous.
Not at all. They've been collecting body armor, knives, for
Months.
yes. And they'd ordered firearms guns and 2,000 rounds of ammunition. Delivery was scheduled for the day after the murders.
Wow, so they were waiting for the guns to continue the spree.
It seems that way. They also found a hatchet, darts, a surgical blade in the house. Robert even got a job specifically to save money for weapons.
The level of premeditation is just staggering. And didn't Michael say something to Crystal beforehand?
Yes, about a year prior. He allegedly asked her if she wanted in, like inviting her into the plan.
And she told her parents.
She did. According to the reports, she told her parents, but seemingly no significant action was taken.
That's just heartbreaking. A potential warning sign missed.
It's a deeply troubling aspect. It raises so many questions about what was going on inside that house long before the murders.
So let's walk through the night itself. July 22nd. Late evening, most of the family is in bed.
Right. Except Robert, Michael, April, and Crystal. It's around 11:30 p.m.
And April asks Crystal to tell the boys to do the dishes. Such a normal, everyday request.
And that mundane request becomes the trigger. Crystal goes to their room, finds them putting on body armor, knives laid out.
And Michael just asks, should we do it right now?
And Robert says, yes, just like that. Chillingly ready.
Then the attack on Crystal. Michael lures her over to look at his computer.
And Robert comes up behind her and slits her throat. And she fights back, incredibly, screaming, running.
But they drag her back inside, stab her repeatedly. Her survival is just unbelievable.
Absolutely. Her ability to fight, to escape momentarily, and ultimately to survive and testify. It's remarkable.
Then their mother, April. She fought back aggressively, the court opinion says.
Yes, she clearly struggled against them, but suffered around 48 stab wounds.
Just horrific. And then the younger siblings, Christopher and Victoria.
They had hidden in the bathroom, locked the door. Robert asked where they were.
And Michael used that awful trick.
Yeah, knocking, pretending he was in danger from Robert. Let me in. He's going to kill me.
And one of them opened the door.
Tragically, yes. Michael then stabbed both 7-year-old Christopher and 5-year-old Victoria to death. The betrayal, it's sickening.
Then Daniel, 12 years old, locked in his father's office.
Michael used the same ruse again, pretending Robert was after him.
Daniel opens the door.
And Michael says to Robert, he's all yours. Robert then stabbed Daniel.
And the father, David.
He came out of his room and Robert attacked him, stabbing him repeatedly.
So it's just one after another, a methodical slaughter.
Yes. And during all this, Michael had apparently disabled the home alarm system.
But Daniel managed to make that 911 call using Michael's phone, right?
That's right. An incredible act of courage in his final moments. Michael then realized and smashed the phone.
But it was too late. The call went through. That call saved Autumn, likely, and led to their capture.
Absolutely. After the killings, the brothers fled out the back towards a creek area. Police arrived very quickly, alerted by that call, around 11:30 p.m.
And inside, amidst all that horror, they find baby Autumn, asleep, unharmed.
Yes. Robert later testified they'd planned to kill her too, decapitation, but they essentially forgot about her in the melee, as the court put it.
Forgot about her. Just chilling.
It is. Police and canine units found the brothers hiding near the creek soon after. Robert still had a knife. Michael was under a bush.
So the immediate horror was over, but the legal process was just beginning. Robert pleaded guilty pretty quickly, didn't he?
He did. September 7, 2016. Pleaded guilty to all 5 murders and the assault on Crystal.
Yeah, his sentence.
6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. 5 for the murders, 1 for the attempted murder. Consecutive meaning he serves them one after another. He's never getting out.
Right, but Michael, being 16, his case was different. He went to trial.
He did. He was found guilty on all counts in May 2018. Sentencing was in August 2018.
And he got life sentences too, but with the possibility of parole, plus extra time for the assault.
Correct. 5 consecutive life sentences with parole possible, plus 28 years for the assault on Crystal. But here's the crucial part. The consecutive nature.
Right, because serving them one after another means, well, how long would he actually have to serve before parole?
Effectively, forever. The calculation puts his parole eligibility somewhere around the year 2233. He'd be 235 years old.
So functionally, it's life without parole, even though it's technically not labeled that way.
Exactly. And this is where it gets legally complex, especially because he was a juvenile. There's a major Supreme Court case, Miller v. Alabama.
What did that establish?
It said mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles are unconstitutional And even discretionary ones require a specific finding that the juvenile offender is, quote, permanently incorrigible or irreparably corrupt, essentially beyond hope of rehabilitation.
Did the jury find that Michael was permanently incorrigible?
No, they didn't. The jury instructions, based on Miller, required that finding for a sentence of life without parole. Since they recommended life with parole possible, they implicitly did not find him permanently incorrigible.
But the judge stacked the sentences consecutively, making parole impossible anyway.
Precisely. And the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals upheld this. Their reasoning was that you look at each sentence individually under the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, and the state doesn't have to guarantee a juvenile eventual freedom.
But wasn't there dissent? Some judges disagreed.
Yes, strongly. Judges Lewis and Kuhn dissented. They argued that the effect of the consecutive sentences is life without parole, functionally speaking.
So it contradicts the jury's finding and the spirit of the Miller ruling.
That was their argument. Judge Kuhn pointed out that the parole board treats a life sentence as 45 calendar years in Oklahoma. So 5 times 45 years plus the 28. It's over 200 years before he'd even be considered.
So the dissenters felt the judge basically did an end run around the Miller requirements and the jury's decision.
That's the essence of their dissent, yes. It's a really significant legal debate about juvenile sentencing in cases with multiple counts. Does the total time matter or just each individual sentence? The majority focused on the individual sentences. The dissent focused on the cumulative practical effect on a juvenile's lifespan.
And Robert, there was more trouble from him in prison.
Yes, in 2019, he attempted an attack on prison officers. Slashed one with a makeshift weapon. That resulted in 3 more life sentences added on.
Wow. So 0 chance of him ever changing, it seems. Where are they now?
Robert's at the maximum security Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Michael's at Lexington Correctional Center.
The aftermath. The house itself became kind of a morbid spectacle, didn't it?
It did, sadly. Sat vacant, declared a biohazard. People actually visited it like dark tourism. It was called Broken Arrow's Amityville Horror House.
That's grim. What happened to it?
It was eventually demolished by fire in March 2017, but later in 2019, something positive came from the site.
Oh.
Reflection Park. A memorial was dedicated there, a community effort to reclaim the space and remember the victims.
That's good to hear. A space for healing. We mentioned Missy Asuski, the counselor, earlier. What were her thoughts on why kids might do this?
She mentioned 3 general categories, though it's rare. Severely mentally ill, severely abused, or antisocial. She also noted factors like family dysfunction, isolation, and how stabbings can sometimes be impulsive, escalating quickly. And the ages 16 and 18 may be a factor in wanting independence, however distorted.
Makes sense. And Dr. Todd Grande, the psychologist, he had some specific thoughts.
He did. He raised the possibility of a shared psychotic disorder, folie à deux, like 2 people sharing the same delusion.
With Robert being the primary one influencing Michael.
That was the suggestion, potentially. He pointed to Robert's later diagnoses in prison: major depression with psychotic features, PTSD, borderline personality disorder, even medication for schizophrenia. So serious mental health issues seem present in Robert.
And Michael.
Dr. Grande noted Michael's lower IQ score, around 83. But the dynamic, it's hard to say definitively if Robert was purely dominant. Michael had his own stated motive of excitement.
Right. It could have been reciprocal, feeding off each other.
Possibly. Dr. Grande was also critical of the judge's consecutive sentencing for Michael, arguing it kind of ignored the jury's implicit finding that maybe he wasn't beyond redemption, that he should have at least a theoretical chance someday.
Yeah, that legal point keeps coming back. And there was that notebook Michael kept.
Oh, yeah. That was chilling. Found in his jail cell. A red notebook.
What'd it say?
A crayon drawing. And the words, "Once upon a time, there were 2 brothers named Michael and Robert. They hated their families, so they killed them. The end."
Just stark, simple, and utterly horrifying. Gives you a glimpse into that mindset.
It really does. And the case got a lot of media coverage, naturally. Dateline, other true crime shows. That 911 call was released publicly in 2022.
So looking back at everything,
Yeah.
what really stands out? The planning, the brutality.
All of that. The meticulous planning is shocking. The sheer brutality, the number of wounds against their own family, including young children. The ages involved, both perpetrators and victims. And that bizarre, chilling motive, the desire for fame, for notoriety. It's just layers of darkness.
And the complexities, too. The legal arguments about juvenile sentencing, Miller v. Alabama, consecutive terms. It raises huge questions.
Definitely. And the potential role of mental health, the isolation, the missed warning signs like Crystal's report.
Yeah.
It's a confluence of tragic factors. You wonder if intervention was possible at any point.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? The loss of this family, the fact their own kids did it. What does a case like this really tell us about? Well, about families. Isolation, the absolute worst possibilities of the human mind.
It forces you to confront uncomfortable questions. There aren't easy answers. It highlights the devastating consequences when family dynamics break down so catastrophically, perhaps combined with severe psychological issues and isolation.
So for you listening, maybe think about those layers, the family tragedy, the horrific acts, the lingering questions. Does it make you think differently about juvenile justice, about recognizing warning signs? Maybe look into Folie à Deux or the Miller case. It's a deeply distorting story, but one that maybe holds some difficult lessons.
Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and stay aware.